It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Andy Paul.
And I'm Bridget Gleason.
And we're here to talk about sort of pressing sales issues of the day, where we take content that we find online, articles about sales and sales management, and sort of dissect and deconstruct and try to help you make sense of what's out there online so you can sell better and be a more effective sales manager.
Great.
And so today I thought we'd start by sort of reintroducing ourselves. So if you're new to the podcast series, this is an episode that we run on a weekly basis as part of my overall podcast, and would love to have people sort of become familiar with us again if they weren't tuning into some of the earlier episodes. So Bridget, take a second to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Bridget Gleason. I am currently the VP of Corporate Sales at a company in the Bay Area, California, called SumoLogic. And we are, Andy, as you and I were talking about right before the show, we are this fast-growing, I don't even know if you'd consider it a startup anymore in the log management analytics space. And all the challenges, the wonderful challenges that come from having to scale and execute fast while the spaceship has already taken off are really fun challenges and very different than ones that a company will experience when they're in the very early startup stages, of which I've also led sales for companies like Engine Yard and also a sales acceleration company called Yesware, and then bigger companies. So it's fun to be in this space with a new set of challenges, and great to be able to have discussions with you, Andy, about these.
Yeah, and for those people who aren't familiar with me, or the first time you listen to one of my podcasts, or you haven't read one of my books, I'm Andy Paul. Go to andypaul.com. I'm an author, speaker, sales consultant, I guess you would say, and I've been doing this for about 15 years with my own company. Prior to that, worked for a series of startups in Silicon Valley and Southern California. And part of what we're trying to achieve here, as I said, every episode, every once a week, we're talking, Bridget and I, is how can we help you as a salesperson? How can we help you as a sales manager sort of make sense of all this content that's out there, all this writing about sales, and there's contrary advice that's given. One person says do X, another says Y, and we're going to try to help sort through some of that we find on a weekly basis, and as I said, dissect and deconstruct and try to help you get some benefit out of some of the really sometimes the good articles that are written, sometimes the bad articles that are written as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of both out there.
So we were talking earlier, as Bridget said before we came on the air, about luck, and we're going to talk about luck, the role of luck in sales. And actually, I wrote a guest post for Yesware when Bridget was working there, though I talked about how you have to embrace luck. Too often I think salespeople don't want to acknowledge the role that luck plays in their ability to win deals.
Yeah, Andy, early on, I started out my sales career at Xerox, and we used to call luck, we called them bluebirds.
Mm-hmm.
And something would fall into your territory and it would be a quick close. And we even said then, you've got to embrace and be grateful for the bluebirds, the bluebirds and the good luck. You have to accept as much as you accept bad luck and bad timing and bad market conditions. But the two definitely exist. And there are things you can do to help bring good luck your way. But luck, I firmly believe, plays a part in sales and company growth and development. It's not everything, but it does play a role.
So you said there are a couple things you think people can do. So what are those two things?
Well, I think being really prepared, being knowledgeable about your market and space, understanding your buyer, picking great companies that have some traction or a great product. I think those all help put you in a position to be luckier.
Yeah, well, I think I'm a huge believer in the adage that the harder you work, the luckier you get.
One of my favorites.
And it's so true, right? I mean, if you put yourself out there, if you're a salesperson, if you put yourself out there, not just do what's required of you, but go that extra mile, right? Maybe you've spent all day dialing the phone, trying to find people to talk to, engage in some conversations, but you're tired at night, but then you don't really want to go to that networking function that's happening for in your local area, but you push yourself to go do it, and by gosh, you meet somebody there that you wouldn't have met had you stayed at your office, and maybe they introduce you to somebody they know. Yeah, that's luck, right? That's sort of a fortuitous set of circumstances that leads you to an introduction that maybe turns into a large piece of business.
Yeah, and that's such a great example, Andy, because so many people would say about that, gosh, you were so lucky that you met so and so, and they just happened to introduce you to this person and you closed that big deal. But as you said, when you track back to the luck, it was actually hard work, thinking ahead, putting yourself out there, etc., that led to that piece of luck. So I love the adage, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I think that example that you gave is a fantastic one.
Well, I think the luck really involves the fact that it exposes you to opportunities, right? You still have to work the deal. You still have to be good. You still have to sell. You still have to win the order.
Right.
But the luck comes into play in terms of, getting opportunities to work on. I mean, I can't name how many times, and gosh, I think I worked for 7 different startups over the course of a long period of time, is that, we'd get people reach out that maybe heard about us somewhere. We hadn't proactively prospected. They weren't really a typical lead. Maybe they're sort of curious. They'd read somewhere in an article or journal somewhere about this new technology coming out. Yeah, it's just sort of luck. They happened to pick up the phone and call us.
Right.
Or that they had read that article that day, some small blurb in a journal that maybe they didn't read. I had a customer tell me that once. I picked up a magazine on an airplane and saw something about your company, and we had just been mentioned in a paragraph in an article. The sheer circumstances led to the fact that it turned out to be a really big deal for us, a big opportunity that we had closed. But luck played played a big role in getting that opportunity delivered to us. And salespeople, I know, hate to say, look, I didn't develop this thing from start to finish, right? I was lucky that this thing sort of crossed the transom and presented itself to me. And that's okay. Embrace it.
I agree, Andy. I don't think we as salespeople need to be defensive about luck that crosses our paths. I think in some ways it's just a spirit of gratitude that God, this is great. Sales is hard work. Sales is hard. And even when you have this lucky opportunity or an introduction, as you said, that doesn't close the deal. There's still a lot of skill required to bring it home and to keep the deal and maintain the relationship and make the customer happy. So I think just embracing it as a piece of a puzzle and not letting ego get in the way, that we can't attribute part of a successful deal or career or company success to the effort, to the work of luck, to the work of other people, to the work of our colleagues, the market, our customers. I think it's okay to just look at it more holistically.
Well, I think it's okay for sales managers too to not be too judgmental, right? I mean, I've been in situations where I've worked with clients where the sales manager, the VP of sales, sort of turns up his nose at some of the leads that are coming in, because even though they turn out to be good customers ultimately, but yeah, we didn't do anything to bring them in. Well, clearly you're doing something, right? I mean, something happened to have this prospective customer hear about you in the first place.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things I would also say about that is, especially today, there is customers look for referrals. They get them from people they know directly. They look on social media. They're looking for a lot of external validation in the form of some sort of referral about a company, a service, a product. And so if you trace it all the way back, the work that a sales rep does on a daily basis and a company does to create a great product, to have a great customer experience, to make the buyer's journey a pleasant one, that all goes into somebody then reaching out, because who knows where they heard about it. But I think all the work that we do as salespeople to create a good experience, especially today when there's so much around social in terms of how people hear and look to find new products and services, that all are just drops in the bucket of what helps us get luckier.
Yeah, and I think that part of the reason that people don't want to acknowledge the role that luck plays in winning deals and having new opportunities, come into their pipeline is the point you talk about is they're afraid to acknowledge that they didn't do it themselves, right? And so forth. Therefore, they're going to look like they're not doing their job. And I think this plays a huge role in this sort of larger issue of why don't inbound sales leads, get followed up more proactively and more thoroughly than they do, right? Industry statistics, research done by InsideSales.com saying 73% of inbound sales leads are never followed up. And I think part of that is that salespeople in general saying, well, look, if my pipeline is full of opportunities that we develop through inbound sales leads, if I have to go to my sales manager saying, well, what'd you do to develop this lead? And I said, well, I just followed up the lead that came in, that they're going to be looked down upon, right? They'll be downgraded.
Yeah, I think that's a piece of it for sure. I think another piece is, I do believe it's getting harder and harder for marketing also to get through the noise to get to bring people in and develop leads. And I think in some ways, when sales is given a huge sort of variety in terms of the quality of a lead, in some ways that can also train a salesperson to say, I'm not going to pay attention. I'm not going to pay attention. These are no good. I think salespeople make a quick judgment and then throw out a whole lot of good ones along with ones that they perceive to be bad. So I think both factors are at play just in terms of following up on leads. But to your point, yeah, a lot of it is salespeople, a lot of them, we want to be the heroes. We want to be the heroes. We want to be the rainmakers. We want to be the ones that know how to do it from start to finish. There's a lot.
I dug this up myself with my bare hands.
Exactly. I walked 10 miles in the snow.
Uphill both ways to get this lead. And gosh darn it, I did it. But again, my point was, and maybe you can comment whether you see this yourself not in what you do, but in other managers you've worked with or managers that work for you, is because I certainly have felt it, is for managers to say, well, yeah, you didn't develop that from the beginning, right? That just sort of came across the transom. Well, yeah, I still had to sell it though. I still had competition on the deal. And oh, by the way, I'm crushing the numbers.
Well, no, I totally agree with what you're saying. And in fact, there's sort of a next generation also of tools, sales tools coming out. Yesware has a product that helps sort of in the top of the funnel lead development. Outreach out of Seattle also has a product. And it's basically, marketing brings something in, but it still takes a lot of effort on the part of a salesperson to qualify, to make contact, to develop that lead, that it's not so simple that something comes inbound to marketing, from marketing, and the sales rep just drops in their lap and then they go sell it. So I agree with you that there are a lot of sales managers out there that assume that that's a gimme when it comes in for marketing, and it certainly is no gimme, especially today. It's no gimme.
No, especially today, it's no gimme, right? All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about lead follow-up and lead management. So stay with us. This is Andy Paul and Bridget Gleason. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. So welcome back. We have been talking about, first of all, about luck, and the role luck plays in selling, and how you should, as a salesperson, as a sales manager, you should embrace luck. I mean, it's really, at the end of the day, it's about how you make your numbers, right? I mean, if you make your numbers and you're doing a consistent basis, or a sales rep's doing a consistent basis, the manager shouldn't judge really where the source of the opportunities came from, right? And it shouldn't make a difference whether they did it by picking up the phone and dialing, or whether they followed up on leads that came in. At the end of the day, it's about, are you able to consistently perform at that level?
Yeah, and I think managers' concern around rep performance and luck is when you have a rep that relies too heavily on luck. And basically, to me, that's somewhat of an excuse on the rep's part. But we can't count on luck. So for me as a rep, particularly as an individual contributor, even as a manager, listen, I'll take luck all day long, but that's not built into my plan.
No.
Luck is what's gonna take me over my number. Luck is what's gonna put me into accelerators.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's going to take you to the next level in your comp plan.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's a great point, in case we didn't make that clear early. We're not talking about depending on luck, because we preface the whole conversation by saying, that the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Absolutely.
And it's certainly been proven to me throughout my career in terms of the deals and opportunities I've won, sometimes really large opportunities that hadn't even forecasted and suddenly showed up. Well, they showed up not as a complete deal, they showed up as an opportunity. We still had to go out and invest the time and effort to sell and win the deal against competition. But yeah, we hadn't anticipated we were going to get that opportunity, and that's fine.
Absolutely. I'll take that all day long. Doesn't come all day long. That's the problem, but I'll take it all day long.
They don't come all day long.
They do not.
There was an article that you and I have been reading a week or so ago entitled Why Your Sales Leads Are Falling Through the Cracks. And overall, not a bad article, but 3 reasons the author gave why sales leads tend to fall through the cracks. And one was no initial lead qualifying, 2, lack of lead nurturing, and 3, a disorganized sales process or disorganized sales processes. So I thought we'd spend a few minutes and talk about this, because we'd just spent some time talking about sales leads and luck and the source of leads and so on. And the premise of this article with this author was that some of the reason leads don't get followed up is that there's no initial qualification that takes place, meaning that there's an SDR or somebody is doing some sort of initial qualification before handing the lead over to the account exec. And if that doesn't happen, then the account exec doesn't follow it up. I mean, is that really the process? I mean, is an account exec completely relying on a sales development rep or business development rep to perform the qualification, or are they just sort of doing triage to help them prioritize this particular opportunity?
Well, in my experience, gosh, what a luxury to have a lead development rep or a business development rep help an account rep out. I've seen in very few instances where an account executive can count on a lead development rep 100% to bring opportunities in. So I think relying on that is, I sure wouldn't rely on that myself. I also think, Andy, what I'm seeing more and more of are tools and technology that companies use to qualify leads. So I know companies like Infer, FlipTop, there's a bunch of them out there that do some basic qualification when a lead comes in, or somebody maybe downloads a white paper. And that is what's being substituted. It's a machine.
It's a lead score.
It's a lead score. And some people are using that or thinking about that as lead qualification. And it's not. It's just a lead score.
Right. Yeah, it has nothing to do with they're ultimately qualified or not to buy your product. It has to do with sort of where they are in their buyer's journey. I mean, that's 2 distinct things altogether.
Yeah, it has to do with where they are in their buyer's journey. And from a very high level, does this particular prospect, company, individual account seem like it's a good fit at a very high level for the products and services that we're selling? So it's rudimentary. I think they can be helpful, but it's in my opinion, it's no substitute for qualification.
So
It's just it's very first, very basic. It's to me, it's more of a filter. So I wouldn't see it as a qualification mechanism, but perhaps a filter that I don't want a lot of stuff coming across an account executive's plate that's going to have them spend cycles where they shouldn't be spending cycles.
correct. So what's the appropriate role? If you have an inside sales team, what's the appropriate role in qualification for the SDR, that frontline person that's made the initial contact? I mean, are they really qualified to make that qualification, right? Do they really have the knowledge and experience to do more than, like I said, just sort of do a triage to say, yeah, sort of ready, not ready, as opposed to not only ready, but based on the questions I asked them, yeah, these are a real prospect for our, or is that really something that the account exec should be doing?
Well, I think the a lead development rep, it can do some of it, but it's again, it's a very basic, I don't even know if you want to call it qualification. It's a very basic level of qualification. And when you think about it, Andy, a lead development rep or business development rep, these are typically individuals who are right out of school and they don't have a lot of business or sales experience. They're often calling on very senior people and leaders and decision makers. So there's a big mismatch in terms of skills and experience. And I think lead development reps are going to be challenged in being able to offer really a lot of value to that leader. So I see it as a very basic sort of validation. Is this, am I talking to the right person? Is this person a decision maker? Does it fit within what I understand to be the general guidelines? And then it really needs to go to an account executive to do what is really traditional qualification of a prospect and understanding kind of what their needs are, what issues they're having, kind of what their current state is.
Qualification.
I
And
think
that's
that
why I use the term
yeah,
triage versus
yeah,
qualification.
and
You
I
think
think
about
that's right.
triage in a medical sense as, is this urgent, right? Do they go to do they go to the ER, or they could be fine just in urgent care, right? I mean, you're making a decision about sort of the state, but not necessarily the readiness, if you will. And yeah, I agree. I mean, this author really advocates that qualification really needs to take place at the front line. And it just concerned me, if people are reading that they would think they could do that. And generally, as you said, your people are inexperienced people talking to very senior people. There's a mismatch in terms of skill sets and really communication set, that it really needs to go to real qualification beyond just sort of this as a sales qualified lead. It really needs to go to the account exec.
Yeah, I like your term, Andy, triage. It made me think that that's a great term for kind of in the sales acceleration space to talk about that front line is triaging because that is what they're doing. Is this hot and needs to go to an account executive? Does it need to go and be nurtured? Are they being disqualified? They're really they're command and control. Okay, air traffic control. Where does this individual prospect or account need to go?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I love triaging. I think that's exactly what they're doing,
Oh,
and very
good.
and
Well,
different than qualification.
go look for my blog post on this.
I'm gonna go find it. I'm gonna go
Well,
find it and send
well,
it.
by the time this actually is published and airs, that blog post will be out.
Okay, great, great. I look forward to reading it.
Yeah. So good. So now the second reason this author gave for why leads fall through the crack is said lack of lead nurturing. So he's saying that what companies do is that they too often take the leads that maybe aren't qualified in the sense he was talking about before, sales qualified, and they tend to get ignored rather than being put into a marketing automation system or some other sales engagement system that exists out there that you can use to continue to maintain contact and be able to continue to deliver value to the prospect until they're ready to embark on their buyer's journey.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's some really great sophisticated tools out there for nurturing, lead nurturing, but they are pretty single dimensional. They're all email based.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to change the way that we interact in the different vehicles that we use. There's a lot on social, Twitter and LinkedIn and forums and text. There's a lot of different ways that people communicate and learn from each other. And right now, the nurturing is pretty single threaded through just through email. And so I'm anxious to see sort of what develops in this space in terms of helping. What are ways that we more creatively can nurture prospects when they're not ready, when they're not ready to buy, they're not ready to begin that journey.
Well, it seems though that one of the issues really right now is that, as you said, sort of technology constrained, right? Is that email is about the only media that exists that can be scheduled, you know, monitored, tracked, and so on in a very formal fashion, as opposed to, as you said, texts or engaging on a LinkedIn discussion group or so on. You know, that those are sort of like individual initiatives, as opposed to, yeah, I can put together a workflow or a automated email sequence of 6 emails that I know are going to go to a potential prospect over a 2 month period, and I can track how they engage, and so on and so on and so forth. But how do I do that with text and so on? I mean, I know there are tools that are coming out that you can program your sales cadence in there, and you can sort of do that. But those tend to be more oriented towards initial capture of interest as opposed to persistence.
I mean, there's some. I think there's some that also uh, do work off the persistence factor. But imagine, Andy, when we can start to integrate, let's say, feeds from Twitter. So let's say I've got a prospect that I'm nurturing, and I've got their email address, their Twitter account, and LinkedIn, let's say. If there was a way, and let's say let's speak into the future, and let's say that I can also track and see where they're active in certain forums or online groups.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting if I there are inputs to my system that tell me when they're active, when they've posted something on Twitter, when they've commented on something of LinkedIn, and there's some analytics around that that tells me, aha, they're starting to comment a lot more on this particular topic that's relevant to me. Sounds like they're warming up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be some really interesting technology. It's all out there. It's all out there. The data is there.
Well, and we're
It's
starting to see some of that in some tools, some of the social
definitely,
CRM. I mean, with
yeah,
Nimble, for instance, as a tool, or you can use certainly certain plugins with Salesforce that you can track a contact's social footprints on a real time basis, so you can see what they're doing. Twitter, LinkedIn updates. I don't think you can get their. Not sure if you get their group discussions or online forum contributions, but certainly their sort of standard social footprint is available to you. Now, it's not necessarily organized and analyzed as you talked
that's
about before.
that's the key. I joke with the people here at SumoLogic. Our whole value proposition is that we can collect these log files from any system, any file, any application, anywhere, and we collect it and we centralize it and we analyze it and we predict it and we can do also sorts of things around it. That this is where sales is going. Also, there's all this data that's being created by prospects and customers and sales reps. And it's there, like you said, and we've got these discrete tools that are starting to collect it, but there will emerge a player that a company or service that starts to collect these and helps us look at all of these inputs in a more intelligent way. So I'm excited. I mean, it's all there. It's all there. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together.
Yeah, and for companies that are listening to this, and sales managers and so on, that hey, I understand it's some of these tools seem a little daunting, but they are appropriate for companies large and small.
Mm.
And as a salesperson, you want to be able to be given intelligence to help you make better decisions about not only when to engage with your prospect, but how to engage with them, and what to provide them that helps them make progress in their decision-making process. And these tools exist. They're not expensive. As Bridget was saying, They're going to continue to evolve. They're going to continue to give even more intelligence. But it's not just enough anymore just to say, look, we've got a CRM system, and sort of say we've checked that box. Because there are all these sales engagement, sales enablement platforms out there that enable you to really get more information about how customers are engaging with the content you provide them, engaging with your emails, engaging with your communications, that, yeah, can improve your sales performance fairly substantially. So take it upon yourself to say, okay, this year we're going to budget, something for our salespeople so that they can, we can expose them to these next generation of tools to help them become more productive. We're going to get our feet wet as an organization so we start understanding what's available out there and take the first step.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think the reason to do it is effectiveness of the team and accelerating your results. And I think the teams that don't do this are going to find themselves slipping further and further behind, because technology really has helped increase the per rep productivity and effectiveness. So I think there are good business reasons to do this for your team that will definitely help revenue and the top line, which is what as sales leaders we're trying to affect.
Yeah, and again, it's just not about CRM anymore. I mean, I think too many companies, and certainly I see this with client companies I work with, they think they've fulfilled their obligation to their sales team if they provide Salesforce or they provide, whatever other CRM system that exists out there that would fit their needs. And it's a good step, but the fact is, what you see with a lot of these sales enablement, sales engagement apps is they're really like the front end. It's like they're built on a CRM system. They're built on Salesforce. It's almost like you really, in some cases, aren't even aware that you're using Salesforce.
Right.
Because you're using these apps and they're giving you this data. And I think the hard thing for sales managers that have been around for a while and so on is that, sometimes the data conflicts with what you think is really happening in the way that customers behave. And it's important, even more important in those cases, to be able to look at the data and say, well, maybe things are changing. Maybe customers are acting differently than I thought in the past. And this data is showing that, and it points a new path for you forward to help your sales reps become more productive.
Yeah, totally agreed. I know I've been surprised by different data insights that I've seen and read that were very different than what I instinctively knew to be true, which wasn't true at all. So I agree. It's important to be able to look at the data, and there's a lot of tools and technologies, like you said, in addition to a good CRM, that can help sales leaders really chart the course for their teams going forward.
And I think the key construct for sellers, as well as sales reps, as well as sales managers, to keep in mind as sort of wrap up with this, is that people are still people. People haven't really evolved in terms of how they make decisions. What's really the revolution is how are they getting to that point where they make the decision, right? How are they gathering the information? How are they interacting with sellers? What are the steps they go through to, let's say, gather the insights and information, data they need in order to make that decision? That part's changed. And it's changing, continuing to change and evolve rapidly. At the end of the day, as people, they're still going to make decisions somewhat the same way. So that part hasn't changed, but how you get from the beginning to that point where they're making a decision has changed quite a bit. And you need to be aware of that, and you need to be structuring your processes and the technologies you use to support those accordingly.
I absolutely agree.
Good. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Bridget and Andy. And this is Andy Paul.
And Bridget Gleason.
And we'll look forward to talking to you then. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.